This is Tom O'Neill of The Envelope with Keira Knightley, star of Atonement, and of course, previous to that, Pride and Prejudice. Back when you were Oscar nominated for Pride and Prejudice, you did an internet chat session with The Envelope.
I did. It was absolutely terrifying. I really haven't ever been more terrified of anything in my life. Well, that's an exaggeration. But it was just so many questions at once, and I'm a slow typer, so I actually had to get my mum to type instead. Impossible.
But still, it was fun.
It was fun. It was lovely.
Would you rather have it that way or one question at a time?
I think I'd rather all at once, because then you can ignore certain questions. I think that's much better.
It's more exciting, too.
Yes.
Yesterday, Atonement played to 2 industry screenings filled with the media.
Ooh.
And I stood outside of both theaters as they emptied, and the excitement level, the enthusiasm, the delight was on every face. The chatter was great. Expectations were really high on this movie coming out of Venice. Everybody was expecting an extraordinary movie, and I think they agreed that they got it.
That's good, because sometimes when you've got expectation that high, you know, it can really actually kill a film, because suddenly people come out and go, well, it wasn't that good.
I know.
But it's great, that's good. You know, I mean, it's been really exciting, because the whole thing was quite daunting. It was sort of similar to Pride and Prejudice. You know, it was a book that people were really obsessed by, and Atonement's rather a famous book for being unadaptable into film. So I think there was a lot of people who were very sceptical about it, and it was really great that it's been sort of really liked.
It's loved because it has what Joe Wright gave to Pride and Prejudice too, which is a fun sense of romantic abandon.
Yeah,
it's very brave for movie makers today to let a movie go screaming over the top in terms of romantic release.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because live in a cynical age.
Yes.
And you sell that as a star beautifully, the aching heart, the yearning, and sometimes there's a backlash among tough critics.
Yeah, and I'm sure there will be. There always is. But I think that the whole point of cinema is to provoke emotions, and you do that any way that you possibly can. And romances are completely brilliant for doing exactly that, for making people feel things. And particularly, I think what's wonderful about this film is it provokes discussion as well, and I think that's quite rare. Thank you very much as my tea arrives. That's wonderful, thank you.
You're having tea with Keira here, listeners.
Yes, English breakfast tea.
In Toronto.
Yes.
Tell us about Cecilia. Tell us her story.
Oh dear, that's really quite difficult. I think she's a woman from a very, very privileged background who is completely directionless. I think we're dealing with British society in the 1930s and 40s, and it's incredibly emotionally repressed. And certainly she's not somebody who's able to talk about her feelings. They're all inside, and at the moment, or at the point that we meet her on one very hot day in 1935, she's a bit like a pressure cooker, and she's about to explode. She's not particularly nice when you first meet her in the film. You know, she's a snob. She absolutely is a snob, and she's very brittle, and she's angry, and I don't think that she knows why she's angry. But there's an incredible release when she finds out that certain feelings inside her. When certain feelings inside her come out, there's a release in the library sequence, which is rather erotic.
Very
and
erotic.
That's all I'm going to say.
The first time we see Cecilia, of course, she's scorning and scowling at the housekeeper's son, James McAvoy, Robbie, and then suddenly does a 180 and surrenders to love for him. Was she feeling that all along, or was she swept up in the moment?
I mean, as I say, I think it's that 1930s and 40s in Britain is the peak of the stiff upper lip, you know, and it's the peak of that kind of emotional repression. It is not, we're not dealing with a society that I think we've got today, which is that psychiatry society where everything comes out and you talk about your feelings and you talk about all that very freely. You know, she doesn't do that, and she is a snob. There is a huge class. I think this film is about class, you know, and the fact that she is from this wealthy background, and the guy that she fancies, is in love with, is the housekeeper's son, and that's a big problem. I think everything about him is pissing her off at this particular point, because she doesn't want to admit that she's got feelings for him. And so what you see is somebody who can't express and can't talk about the things that are going on inside her, and therefore she's being brittle and she's being bitchy, and then you find out why.
But it's interesting that when the allegation is made against her lover, that is the plot turn of this story, she doesn't believe it, does she? But
No.
she has cause to believe it because he sends her a dirty note with a dirty word in it. In other words, he betrays a wink of a dark side that could be there.
I wouldn't say that the note's particularly dark. I think, I think this is a film that's about the different ways that one situation can be perceived, and in this case, how an innocent perceives a situation, how Bryony totally misinterprets what's happening, and how two innocent people's lives are completely crushed because of a fantasist. I think, what was the question? I've completely forgotten.
She chooses not to believe.
Oh yeah, she
the
chooses not to
right.
believe. I think that she, as soon as she's admitted her feelings for Robbie, everything becomes completely clear. I think there is not 1 second where she believes that he could possibly have done that. And I think if that entire family had really been looking at the character of Robbie instead of his standing in that very class-driven society, I think they would have seen that it was completely ridiculous as well. The very fact, and it was a thing that Joe Wright, the director, and I spoke about a lot, she at no point looks at Paul Marshall, not to give this away, God, I'm giving it away now, but okay, the character that commits the rape, at no point does Cecilia believe, even up to the end of the film, she doesn't believe it's him, because he's a millionaire, because he's somebody of huge social standing. So, this is not a perfect character. I think Robbie is a perfect character. I think he's good beyond anything that I can imagine. He is a good man, and he's completely destroyed. Cecilia isn't. She, in a funny way, she finds redemption in the fact that Robbie is destroyed, in the fact that she has to give up so much. That's what redeems her. But she's not perfect in any way. And I thought that was amazing. But as far as believing whether Robbie is guilty or not, there is not a second of doubt in her. And I think that is also something that I found completely fascinating. The fact that she could not live with the injustice that her family had committed. There was no way. No, I thought that was quite amazing.
Last question. Take us behind the scenes. Was there any kind of quirky incident that happened, or something that's fun to tattle on making of this movie?
I can't think about a quirky incident. It was sort of the dream job. It really was. It was like, I'd obviously worked with Joe Wright on Pride and Prejudice, and completely loved working with him.
Nothing went wrong behind the scenes?
Not wrong. No, not wrong. We sort of, we all lived together in this incredible farmhouse up in Shropshire when we were shooting the first sort of third of the film, which was hysterical because it was sort of all of us cooking breakfast, lunch and dinner, and you'd come down in your pyjamas, and Brenda Blethyn would have put on the coffee for the morning, and Joe Wright's doing the eggs, and it was completely ridiculous. It's what you dream sort of filming experiences are going to be like. As far as, it was weird doing the sex scene with Joe because he's my mate, and we suddenly got to it, and it's a scene that, it's not like most sex scenes that are kind of, I hate to say this, but quite gratuitous and completely pointless. This is a scene that is totally integral to the whole of the film. It had to be erotic and it had to be passionate. And we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and then when we got onto set, it was Joe, my mate Joe, having to direct me in this scene, and we were both just going, this is horrible, this is really weird, and had to obviously get over that and go, no, be professional, come on. But it was very funny because he literally talked us through the whole scene. So what you don't hear is Joe's voice in the background being rather explicit about exactly what point in the lovemaking we were on. Which was quite extraordinary. And maybe it'll be on DVD extras, who knows.
Well, thanks so much. Good luck with the movie.
Thank you very much.